Mama Agnes. Mama Agnes follows a young woman home alone who tries to talk to her mother over a video call. The vibe feels off. The girl can't really talk to her mom and sends a message saying the house smells rotten. Everything changes when the mother appears inside the house, showing up in a silent and invasive way. She watches her daughter from a distance, standing still, with a stiff, unnatural smile that never leaves her face. There are no screams or explanations, just that motionless presence that feels wrong in every possible way. The young woman realizes something is off, but she can't quite explain what it is, only that her mother clearly isn't normal. The most disturbing moment happens when the phone starts ringing again. The girl looks and realizes it's her calling. On the screen appears the real mother, smiling, alive, and natural, very different from the motionless figure standing in front of her. In that instant, the daughter understands without any doubt that the presence before her is something evil. In just a few minutes, Mama Agnes turns an everyday situation into a suffocating psychological nightmare.
Sweetie?
Strange Family. The strange thing about The Johnsons is a short film that starts out strange right away. In the first scene, the father, Sidney Johnson, accidentally walks in on his son Isaiah, doing what every boy does. He reassures the boy, saying that it's normal, but when he leaves the room, something is revealed. Yeah, the kid is a little bizarre. After that, the story follows the family years later, with Isaiah now grown up and about to get married. At first glance, the family seems perfect, but they hide something deeply disturbing inside their home. From the beginning, small, strange situations start to appear, always wrapped in silence and discomfort, showing that Isaiah has an obsession with his father. Little by little, the short reveals that Sidney is actually trapped in an abusive and completely unacceptable relationship, with his son abusing him. The most shocking detail is that this relationship isn't shown as a secret hidden from everyone, but as something that has existed for years. Joan, the mother, realizes something is wrong, but chooses to preserve the appearance of normality, avoiding confronting reality until everything spirals out of control. This complicit silence makes the atmosphere even more suffocating. Isaiah is controlling, manipulative, and emotionally unstable, using guilt and fear to keep his father under his control. The horror of the short doesn't come from monsters or jump scares, but from the constant feeling of discomfort. A small curiosity is that the short was directed by Ari Aster, who later gave us Hereditary and Midsommar. The Box. Other side of the box starts out almost harmless. Ben and Rachel are at home having a normal night when an old friend of Ben's shows up without warning. He looks pale, restless, barely talks, and is holding a simple cardboard box. Before leaving, the friend hands over the box and gives one rule. Once it's opened, someone has to keep their eyes fixed on what's inside. It's not an exaggerated warning or a vague superstition. It's an order. If you look away, it gets out. And once it gets out, there's no going back. When he opens the box, Ben sees something bizarre. It doesn't attack or move right away, it just watches. At first it seems too still to be a threat. That's exactly where the short starts building its cruelty. Every time Ben blinks for too long or needs to look away for just a moment, something changes. A little more of the face appears. A neck starts to emerge, as if the creature is slowly moving forward. The house turns into a space of constant surveillance. The creature doesn't need to move fast. It has time. It knows no one can stare forever. Each new glance reveals silent progress. The feeling is that it's being pulled out simply by the human act of failing. The horror isn't in what the creature does, but in what it waits for. When Rachel ends up looking away at the wrong moment, everything breaks. Ben has to leave the house for a short time, and when he comes back, he finds the scene that confirms his worst fear. The creature has completely left the box. Now standing, wet, dripping water onto the floor, it fills the space as if it had always belonged in that house. Fans call it the Wet Man, a silent and oppressive presence that doesn't need to run or attack. But the horror doesn't end there. From upstairs, other figures begin slowly coming down the stairs. Human silhouettes, empty and submissive. They are former box watchers, people who failed before and now exist only as extensions of the curse. When the lights go out, Ben understands there's no escape anymore. The short doesn't show his death or a direct attack. It simply cuts, making it clear that Ben lost. Lights Out. Lights Out is a short film that follows a woman alone at home during the night, walking through the rooms in silence until she notices something strange happening whenever the lights go out. Every time she turns off the light in a room, a figure appears in the darkness, standing still, watching. When the light is turned back on, the presence disappears. Without understanding what's going on, she starts testing the limits of this invisible threat, switching the lights on and off, trying to confirm whether it's real or just in her head. The fear grows as the figure starts to feel closer and closer. Trying to protect herself, the woman improvises a simple solution. She uses tape to keep the hallway light on, believing that will be enough to keep her safe while she goes to sleep in her bedroom. The problem is that inside the bedroom, the only light comes from a weak lamp that soon starts to fail. The hallway light goes out, the door moves, and soon there's the feeling that something is inside the house. The figure doesn't give up, and the short delivers a fast, direct final moment. The interesting fact is that this 2013 short later, in 2016, was turned into a feature film, again directed by David F. Sandberg, but this time the movie didn't get as much approval from the audience. Guest is a film that grabs attention right away because of how it presents its protagonist. Mary wakes up injured in the bedroom of an unknown house, almost blind and unable to hear, with no memory of how she got there. The homeowner says she found her collapsed in the bathroom and tries to help her, allowing Mary to hear by putting a hearing aid on her. With that, Mary begins to tell what happened. The night before, she was running along an isolated road, being chased by a tall, silent creature called the Guest. Trying to escape, she breaks into an empty house and hides in the bathroom, but realizes the entity is already waiting there, just watching her. The constant and oppressive presence pushes Mary into a complete breakdown, injuring her eyes and ears in a desperate attempt to get rid of the creature. In the present, after hearing the story, the homeowner locks her alone in the bedroom. Without the bandages, Mary discovers that the Guest is sitting beside her, leaving an unsettling and unexplained ending. The Smiling Man. The Smiling Man follows a girl alone at home, watching cartoons on TV. The setting seems normal at first, but strange elements quickly appear around the house, like colorful balloons attached to small bags containing doll parts. The girl follows the balloons into the kitchen. Grocery bags are scattered on the floor, and someone seems to be hiding behind the counter. That's when the figure known as the Smiling Man appears. Pale, with his body exposed and a smile on his face, he doesn't act like a monster at first. Instead of attacking, he watches. Instead moves closer slowly and tries to interact with the girl in ways that should be innocent, like magic tricks and almost playful gestures. Then suddenly this happens. Right after, the camera reveals that it was the little girl's mother's blood, who was already practically dead, right behind him. The girl gets scared while he keeps spreading more blood on his face, and the film ends. The short doesn't explain who the creature was, what happens to the girl, or what happened in that house. It just ends with no answers at all. Another Smiling Man. Another film with a similar name that also became famous is 2 A.M. The Smiling Man. In the film, a man walks alone late at night down an empty street. Nothing supernatural at first glance, just silence and a lot of darkness. Suddenly, a figure appears in the distance with a permanent smile on its face, moving in a way that's far too bizarre to seem normal. The strange figure then just dances happily, but at 2 a.m. on an empty street, no one can see that as something fun. He doesn't run, doesn't scream, doesn't directly threaten, he just dances. The Smiling Man watches, slowly gets closer, and seems to play with the situation. The man then tries to switch sides of the sidewalk, just trying to leave that bizarre figure behind. But when he turns around, he realizes the creepy dancer is crouched down, staring at him. He keeps getting closer and suddenly starts chasing him. The guy, completely terrified, runs to another street, and it seems like the danger is gone, but when he least expects it. The short is inspired by a popular creepypasta about a man who lived in downtown of a large city in the United States and claims he was chased late at night by a smiling being along the sidewalks. Peephole. This is another psychological horror short that once again works well with the idea of an evil doppelganger that appears out of nowhere. The story starts in a very ordinary way. A man is alone in his apartment when he hears a knock on the door late at night. He gets up from the couch, walks over, and when he looks through the peephole, he comes across something impossible to ignore. On the other side of the door is a perfect double of himself, seen from behind, wearing the same clothes and copying every single movement exactly. At first, the situation seems curious, like a strange mirror game. The protagonist raises his hand, the other one imitates him. He tilts his head, the reflection does the same. The man even starts dancing for fun, and the double follows along, turning it into a funny moment. But what seemed like a joke slowly becomes threatening. At a certain point, the double is simply no longer outside. It disappears, and that's when the short fully dives into psychological horror. The man turns around, and there, inside the apartment, is his double. He tries to open the door to escape, but something goes wrong and the roles reverse. Now it's the double who controls everything, using his fingers to force the man closer, making him walk like a puppet. The two get close until the double turns around and delivers the final scare. On the Train. Man on a Train is a psychological horror short that turns a completely ordinary situation into something deeply unsettling. The story begins with a woman getting on an almost empty train at night. She observes the people around her, listens to conversations, studies faces, and drifts into that almost automatic habit of someone who uses public transportation all the time. Suddenly, she looks toward the window, and when she looks back at the seats, everything has changed. The car is now empty, way too quiet, everyone is gone. The only exception is a pale-faced man standing among the seats at the far end, staring directly at her. His presence completely breaks the sense of normality. The woman looks again, and now the man is in the aisle. Seconds later, he appears among the nearby seats, right in front of her. She stays seated, paranoid, not knowing what might happen. She then looks back out the window, and suddenly the man appears reflected in the glass, suggesting he's about to attack. Suddenly, the film ends with no jump scare or anything else. Suckablood. Suckablood is a horror short with a dark fairy tale vibe that mixes fantasy, folklore, and childhood fear in a surprisingly cruel way. The story is based on a simple legend. A creature appears on dark, stormy nights to punish children who suck their thumbs, a habit seen as wrong and shameful. The short follows Tilly, a young girl who already lives surrounded by fear. The house feels too big, too dark, full of shadows that come to life at night. Her mother catches her sucking her thumb and, instead of comforting her, uses the legend as a threat, cursing her own child by saying that Suckablood will come to get her. After hearing that, Tilly panics, already imagining that something terrible is going to happen to her. Bedtime arrives and she lies down, whispering, begging Suckablood not to come for her. The creature then appears under the little girl's bed and starts lurking around. But like any good horror film, it has its own sense of justice. When the girl goes downstairs, she finds her own mother dead, killed by the creature. She was also sucking her thumb. Suckablood even leaves a message written in blood for the girl before leaving. One last dive. How many minutes do you need to scare an audience? Director Jason Eisner needed less than 1 minute. One Last Dive is a short filmed entirely in first person, putting the viewer inside the suit of a police diver. The idea is simple. One last descent to check an underwater crime scene before ending the operation. The problem is that underwater, nothing feels simple. Visibility is almost zero. Lighting is limited, and there's no way to know what's waiting below. Suddenly, this terrifying woman appears out of nowhere. Something then attacks the diver, wraps a chain around his arm, and drags him into the empty depths of the sea, and the film ends. The Backrooms. The Backrooms found footage is a psychological horror short created by Kane Pixels that helped turn an internet urban legend into a massive phenomenon. The legend talks about empty rooms, offices, and hallways that exist outside our reality and are inhabited by entities. The video uses the classic found footage style, as if everything were being recorded on an old, unstable VHS camera, which immediately creates a feeling of realism and desperation. The core idea is simple and terrifying. A young man accidentally falls out of reality and wakes up in a place that's impossible to understand. An endless maze of yellowish rooms and hallways with dirty carpets, featureless walls, and fluorescent lights that never stop buzzing. This is the so-called level 0 of the Backrooms, a liminal space that feels familiar and wrong at the same time. Even without showing much, the environment gives the constant feeling that something is watching. The absence of people, furniture, or any sign of life makes the place even more oppressive. An entity chases the protagonist as he tries to run and hide, but the place feels like an endless maze that always throws him back to the same spot. He eventually gets attacked and thrown out of the Backrooms, but when he returns to the real world, he falls from a terrifying height and dies. Aunty Mabel. Aunty Mabel is another film that shows you shouldn't trust relatives too much. The story revolves around two sisters, Jada and Faye, who are responsible for taking care of Aunt Mabel, a woman who starts showing signs of dementia. Right in the first scene, the aunt walks into the closet and stays there. The younger niece gets scared and calls her older sister to take her out. But right away, it's already clear that something is wrong with the aunt. The older sister tries to talk to her and brings her downstairs, not noticing anything strange. Downstairs, lying on the couch, the aunt asks the niece to come closer.
Come here.
Then the scene cuts to the younger sister sleeping peacefully until she's awakened by the feeling of being watched. It's the aunt standing in the bedroom doorway. She walks toward the bed and little by little her face turns into this. That wasn't the real aunt. Night Night Nancy. Another excellent short that has almost no dialogue is this one. The night starts quietly with Nancy sleeping peacefully in her bed until she's awakened by a notification on her phone. On the other side of the screen is Josh, who starts a conversation and asks if she could send some photos from a recent trip. Still half asleep, Nancy agrees and opens her phone gallery expecting to find normal pictures. Instead, she comes across something disturbing. Among the photos are images of herself lying in bed, asleep, clearly taken inside her bedroom. Terrified, Nancy panics and messages Josh, saying there might be someone inside her house. With her heart racing, she gets up and starts walking through the rooms, trying to understand what's happening. That's when she sees a woman wearing a mask and holding a knife, slowly walking through the house, looking for her. Desperate, Nancy warns Josh on her phone and runs back to the bedroom, hiding inside the closet. The armed woman enters the room, calmly searches the space, and gets dangerously close to the hiding spot. Nancy tries to call the police, but her hands shake as the killer gets closer and closer. Suddenly, the woman looks toward the closet, pauses, and simply leaves. Still in shock, Nancy looks at her phone again and notices something even more terrifying. Her gallery now contains photos of Josh dead, covered in blood. Confused, she tries to call him, looking for some explanation. At that moment, the phone starts ringing from inside the closet itself. Overcome with terror, Nancy turns on the light and finds a blood-covered man hiding there, holding Josh's phone and muttering disconnected phrases. The film ends abruptly with no answers, leaving only horror and the feeling that nothing was truly understood. If you got curious, all of these shorts can easily be found on YouTube.